Namaste. Welcome to Sipping on Stories podcast. I'm your host Sehereen, and this is where we welcome women healers and spiritual leaders from all around the world to come and share their journeys and their experiences. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing lots of love to our podcast episodes. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. Please like and subscribe to this channel so we can continue spreading some love. Thank you. Namaste, everyone. Welcome back to Sipping on Stories podcast. Today, we are diving into a topic that resonates so deeply with so many women. Reconnecting with ourselves is just not, physically, but also spiritually and emotionally. My guest is the incredible Cassandra Juniphant, who is the founder of Ori Ara, a self-care company dedicated to reviving traditional wellness practices for modern women. Now, Cassandra's journey is nothing short of transformative. From being an overworked single mother and corporate executive to becoming a pro bodybuilder, yogi, and now a beacon of holistic wellness for women everywhere. She's here to share how she turned her struggles into sacred self-care and why she believes embracing our bodies is the ultimate act of self-love. Cassandra, namaste. It's such an honor to have you here today.
Namaste. I love that. Thank you so much. I actually have namaste tattooed on my left foot.
How about
Yeah.
that? So what
Just a little
inspired
fun
you?
fact about me.
What inspired you to get that?
You know, um, Good question. Well, on my left foot, I have a tattoo in the same place, but they're just opposite feet, obviously. I have a saying called live, love, lift. And that's because that's kind of like what bodybuilders do. We live, we love, we lift weights, right? And me and a girlfriend who were bodybuilders together, we got it at the same time. And I we did that because bodybuilding took us so far in life. Like literally it's tattooed on our feet because we felt like it carried us, like it was what took us through the world. And then after bodybuilding or partway through my bodybuilding journey, I discovered yoga.
Hmm.
And and obviously, if you really live as a yogi, not just practicing, yoga, but like really embracing that tradition, namaste is clearly a part of that. And so I thought, let me get that tattooed on my other foot
Yeah.
because it also has taken me. It's literally been this on-ramp to
Hmm.
so many beautiful things in my life. So both weightlifting and yoga are represented on my feet because they've taken me so far.
How weird. It's so interesting, like these stories. I love it. Thank you for sharing. And you have such a, I think it's a, exciting journey itself. And I was very excited when I spoke to you the first time. And I have never, kind of met a person, have done so many things and kind of embracing and living like a yogi truly. And I would love to know from you, like, what it's like. But I think I would start off maybe from the beginning. So, what inspired you to create Ori Ara, and how did your journey actually shape its mission? So, I'm sure
Yeah,
that's a big kind of question. So yeah, go for
it
it.
is. It is a big question. So I'll be talking a lot, but hopefully it'll all like, flow together and it'll make sense. So I founded Oriara because one, I had the opportunity in 2021, my company that I was the vice president of human resources was purchased. And so I was laid off. And it actually never occurred to me at the time to go get another job. It occurred to me, this was 2021. So this was COVID era, right? And
Yep.
everyone's paying attention to their health, I think, for the first time in a long while in a really meaningful way. And I was like, the world needs me right now. I can't go back to corporate. I feel like I've got a gift, I've got something to share. And the reason I felt that way was because most of my career, or a good portion of my career, I should say, alongside human resources, I had this side hustle in wellness and in fitness. So the story goes, I was struggling to lose the baby weight with my son,
Mm.
just couldn't get it off. And I was actually doing jumping lunges, trying to get in shape, and I dislocated my knee. And I was furious. I was furious. And so I went to Google and searched ways to work out without hurting my knee. and I
Mm,
stumbled across bodybuilding.com, and I was like astounded. I had never seen women who had muscle and who looked like that. And so I was
mm,
like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. So my next Google search was to find a coach in the area. And I
mm,
found a coach within 10 miles of me. The next closest coach was like 50 miles away. And I was like, to me, this is a sign. This is a clear sign from the universe that I've got to do this. And so I did. And mind you, I was broke. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just knew something about this was calling me. And
mm,
I started bodybuilding and I ended up competing for 5 years. I went pro in 2016. But along that bodybuilding journey, I was getting really, really stiff and like hard to move. And I was like, I think I need to start stretching. And that was how I stumbled into yoga, just because I
mm.
feared my body was going to break. I was so stiff and hard if I
Yeah.
didn't start doing something. And then, of course, I fell in love with yoga. Um, but also along that, I studied nutrition, I studied martial arts, I competed for a little while, I owned a gym, became a certified personal trainer. I really just fell in love with everything that I was learning about having a body. And I
Mm,
remember one day in the gym, I was getting ready for a bodybuilding show, and this is called peak week. It's the week right before your show. And
mm.
so before you hit the stage. So I am dehydrated. Like the point is to dehydrate your body so your muscles pop out.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
eating no carbs. I'm not really sleeping that well. Like it's a hard week. And I was dying in the gym during a workout. And I remember so clearly, so clearly that spirit spoke to me and said, "This is what we came for." And I got a download in that moment, and I understood instantly that the like the pain in my lungs, like grasping for air, and the ache in my muscles and the sweat on my body was all a really beautiful thing for my spirit to experience, because otherwise in non-physical form, our spirit doesn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And it all just made sense, which is why I pursued all of those things I'd mentioned previously about the body so earnestly. It was just I just wanted to know more. And
Yeah.
again, this was all alongside my human resources career. This was all as my side hustle. And what I will say about that is that as I was getting to know my body and taking care of my body better, my career went like this. I
Mm,
got the raises, I got the promotions, I made more money, and I'm clear. I'm 100% clear. It's because of my health and well-being. I'm clear
mm,
it's because of how I showed up to myself. I led myself first, and it made me then a leader to others.
mm.
And so fast forward to, many years later when my company gets sold, and I get laid off, and I'm like, I don't feel like going back to work. I don't think that's what I'm being called to do. I think I'm being called
Mm,
to help, to serve. And again, this is during COVID where health is
yeah,
everywhere. And I'm like, this feels like another sign.
yeah.
And so that's what I did. I founded my company, Ori Ara. Ori Ara has gone through many, many, many iterations over the last, what is it, 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. But ultimately, it's a self-care company. And that's because that entire time I was on my initial health and fitness journey, that
Mm,
entire time, what I realized I was doing was sharing my self-care practices. I was sharing what self-care looked like as a single mother. I was a single mother during that time as well. So I was sharing my self-care practices as a single mother, as a corporate executive, as a woman of color. I was just sharing freely and openly and lavishly because
yeah.
I wanted to help. And so when it came time to found my company, I'm like, what am I doing? What is it that I want to put into the world? It's self-care. It's
Mm,
self-care. Ori Ara is a self-care company. And like in the intro, you said we're reviving
mm,
traditional wellness. Like we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is not about creating some newfangled thing for you to try and insert into your life. This is just moving with what's always been here and realizing it still applies to us today as modern women.
mm.
So does that
So
answer your question?
beautiful. Oh, yes. I think it's quite inspiring, Cassandra. Your journey
Thank
has
you.
been truly inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. And,
Yeah.
if we kind of come back to reviving the traditional wellness practices for modern women, so what are some of the forgotten fundamentals of self-care that women often overlook? And how do these practices help us kind of reconnect back to our bodies?
Sure. So there's a few things. So the first things that immediately I always want to talk to a woman about is this, are you resting?
Mm,
Are you actually going to sleep and resting? Are you hydrating yourself? Are you eating nutritious foods? When was the last time you had, green vegetables? When was the last time you had fresh food? It's
mm,
some of those very fundamental basics. I have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
no.
It's a psychological tool, but
Okay.
it kind of helps us determine what a person needs to be motivated in life. But in any case, I created a hierarchy of self-care,
Right.
and I think that was important to do because if you go to the mainstream, like if you were to go to Instagram right now and search self-care, what's going to pop up is Self-Care Sunday, and you're going to see hair and nails and massages and all of those beautiful things. And believe me, I believe in those things, okay? I'm a luxury pampering kind of girl. However, however, that mistakenly leads us to believe that self-care is just once a week, and it mistakenly leads us to believe that it's expensive. When the fact is, self-care is
Mm,
a daily practice and it's very inexpensive, if not free.
mm,
I say that self-care is our birthright and there's no barriers to entry. And so on my hierarchy of self-care needs, at the foundation, at the bottom, are the things that I mentioned. It's rest, it's water, it's whole natural foods, and it's knowledge of self. And
yeah.
from there, we can go up to the self-care Sunday massages and nails and getting a personal trainer and going on a retreat and all of those things, right? But I often find that we start at the high, expensive things, and our foundation is completely shot. Like we don't
Mm,
have a foundation. I've been to retreats with women, or I've hosted retreats with women, and they are there. They'll pay whatever it costs to get in, they'll be there all day, but they haven't had green vegetables in like 6 months. So the self-care priorities just need to be reassessed, right?
yeah.
Haven't
Great.
had 8 hours of sleep since the beginning of time.
Mm,
And so when those forgotten fundamentals really come back to some of those basics, but I would say, so I wanted to share that because I think it's tangible,
mm,
action-oriented fundamentals that women can instantly engage with. But the true, true, true answer, the number one forgotten fundamental of self-care is self-worth.
mm,
It's worthiness. It's believing that you deserve to take
yeah.
care of yourself. It's believing that the time, the money, the energy, the effort, all the resources that you spend on yourself are absolutely worth it. That's the number one forgotten fundamental of self-care. And
Yeah.
so I start there. It's literally my first pillar of wellness.
Mm,
I start there because a lot of women believe that they'll be worthy once they get somewhere or once they achieve something or once they do
mm,
something. Like the worthiness comes afterwards.
yeah.
And it's really, really important that we flip that and understand the worthiness comes first. And with
Yeah.
our sense of self-worthiness, all the other things will flow
Mm,
effortlessly.
I agree. And it is, I think you hit home like perfectly with that point. Because I feel like with women, we are naturally giving beings, I think, and we just give and give. And even, when I look at our mothers and in general, I come from an Indian culture and I've seen how they're kind of tirelessly working day and night, just providing for the family, but never looking after themselves, be it emotionally or mentally or physically. And I think that's very important. I totally resonate with that. And you always have to believe that you are worthy. And it's not like a prize that you get at the end. It needs to be kind
Oh,
of built in from the beginning. Yeah,
a
agree.
hundred percent. And the saying goes, your subconscious will only allow you to have what it believes you are worth.
Mm,
So if you don't believe you're worthy, I can say that with a lot of confidence, not to be mean, but to be really clear and make a stark line that unless you believe you deserve it, you will not get it. So it
yeah.
starts with your worth. You're not, yeah, you get
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely. The
Yeah,
thought that matters. It's energy.
exactly.
So yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Cassandra, you emphasized sacred self-care. So
Yeah.
you've already kind of talked about what sacred self-care means to you in many ways. but more importantly, how can women actually integrate this into their busy and modern lives?
Yeah. So that's the best thing about self-care is that it's not really an integration in the sense that we need to make space for it. We have to make time for it, or we have to sacrifice in some sort of way in order to take care of ourselves. The way I approach self-care and teach other women to approach self-care is understanding that you are taking care of yourself already. It's just, are you doing so with intention? And are you doing so with the understanding that you are sacred? Not
Mm,
this, not the thing that you do, not the caring, but you, your physical self, your vessel, you are sacred. So anything you do with
mm,
yourself then becomes sacred,
yeah.
right? And so self-care, as we've discussed, the fundamentals, that foundation, again, rest, hydration, good food, knowledge of self, these are all things we're doing already. You don't
Mm,
have to make time, or of course, movement. Let me not forget movement. But these are things we're doing already. We don't have to make time for them. It's just, are we understanding that when we do these things, we're doing it to a
mm,
sacred vessel. We're doing it to our divine feminine. So
yeah.
therefore, it becomes a spiritual practice. It becomes a spiritual act. And it's the regular, everyday, mundane things. I call this process actually, it's sacred self-care, but it's also the alchemy of self-care, where
Mm,
alchemy, you're taking base elements that are not special and you're transmuting them into something that is precious and very, very valuable. And that's what self-care is. We're taking the basics of taking care of ourselves. We're
yeah.
talking about sleeping and drinking water and eating and showering and brushing our teeth. All of these
Mm,
things might seem like, oh, I just need to do this. Oh, but do you understand that, brushing our teeth, for example, our teeth are crystals. Our teeth there's metaphysical properties and beautiful qualities to our teeth and everything on our body
yeah.
that if you understand that, you come into awareness. And if you're going to be brushing your teeth anyways for, what is it, 2 minutes, the dentist says you brush your teeth for 2 minutes, you're going to be spending 2 minutes brushing your teeth, right? So you can do so angrily because you have to, or you can do so tired because you're sleepy, or you can do so with intention because our mouth, our teeth specifically, are like this gravitational pull on energy, or suppress energy in our body. People
Mm,
don't know that. And so when you take that 2 minutes to let go of whatever's holding you down or whatever's not processed, you turn that into a sacred act. You turn brushing your teeth, a regular everyday thing, into
mm,
sacred self-care.
yeah.
But there's nobody teaching us about our body, one, the sanctity of our body, the sacredness of our body, or how to take care of it. And
Mm,
so we learn things like self-care from social media, and it's no wonder we're so confused. But you can point to anything on your body, and I guarantee you there's a spiritual element to it that when you
yeah.
understand that, everything you do then becomes sacred.
Yeah.
Everything. So,
Absolutely.
sacred self-care, to circle back to your question, it's not about inserting and making room. Women are always like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. You might not. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not, but
Mm,
this does not require more time. It requires intention. It
mm,
requires that you become present with yourself in the moment and your body
mm,
and allowing the sanctity of it to arise. You don't have to do anything. Just by being here, you're divine. Just by being here and breathing and looking at each other, right? So just allow that to be. But we're so used to suppressing our divinity
mm,
and suffocating our divinity. So it feels like anything that we need to do that's special or sacred feels outside of us and far away, and we have to go over there and do it or make time to go do it.
mm.
But it really is just coming into the understanding
Yeah.
that we are,
Yep.
period.
Yeah, agree. I cannot agree more. And
Yeah,
this is a curious question. I think I'm a curious person that way. So, so
I love
I
it.
was just kind of curious about, you going through this bodybuilding era of yours and phase, and with women, I find that because we have these hormones and so many things, and stress is like a biggest enemy for our hormones, and so
Yeah.
how did you kind of like manage that? So did you see any like physical kind of restrictions or kind of effects as you were going through your bodybuilding phase? So what was that like?
No, as a matter of fact, it taught me about my body.
Mm,
being a bodybuilder made me so much more present and aware with myself and what I was putting in my body and what my body was going through.
mm,
I really babied myself during those years, which is why I think my career again went like this, is because I was getting into other holistic practices like yoga, like acupuncture. I was making sure I was getting plenty of rest, which is really, really important for our hormone production, right? Like just getting 8 hours of sleep alone. So I really pampered and in like a very foundational way my body during those years and carry on a lot of those lessons with me today,
mm,
um, that allowed for my hormones to operate at their best, I think, optimally.
mm,
And every other system in my body was operating optimally. And I really became a pure, clear channel for the divine that was trying to express through me, which is why I felt like everything I touched turned to gold, is because there was nothing causing interference. I wasn't
mm.
tired. I wasn't achy. I wasn't moody. I wasn't any of those things that normally happen when you aren't taking care of yourself. And
Yeah.
those things impact our ability to trust our gut, to trust our
Mm,
intuition, to trust what the divine is trying to share with us. It
yeah.
interrupts those downloads. And so, with all of that removed, I really was a really clear channel for for all of the divinity that was trying to get out into the world.
It's beautiful. I think in the essence that when you have this divine flowing, through you, there's nothing is, stopping you from kind of achieving what you need to. So that aspect
Yeah.
of is there too. So I think, yeah, makes sense.
Well, I'll say that I want every woman to understand that the divine is flowing through all of us
Yeah.
constantly. Like it's
Yeah.
not like I had more divinity flowing through me at that time. What I know is true is that we all have a full force of divinity flowing through us. But what happens
Mm,
is we're throwing up interference with not getting sleep, with not, moving our body, without being
yeah.
hydrated. Those are walls and speed bumps and interference that we're throwing in, but the divine in you is there and eager and
Yeah.
excited and inspired to get out into
You
the
just have to
world.
recognize it, I guess.
Yes, exactly. It's recognition, it's presence, it's intention. Absolutely.
Yeah. And a little sideline as well. So, what is it like living like a yogi in your perspective, and how do you kind of embrace this on a daily basis?
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, actually, the intention behind it all. It's understanding the oneness. It's
Mm,
understanding it's understanding and being aware of the oneness. So one of the things that, because I consider myself a yogi, I believe, Shakti, that you and I met in the astral and the nether realms before we came to earth. I believe that because you love me and because I love you, we agreed to meet here on earth and on your podcast and talk about all these beautiful things that we could share with other people so that their light could shine brighter.
mm,
That's the oneness
yeah.
that I navigate the world with. Everybody that I come in contact with, I love and loves me back. Sometimes that love shows up as um, anger,
Mm,
frustration, road rage, um, a horrible boss, a toxic partner. Sometimes love shows up, but think about how much somebody has to love you as a spirit. If you've ever had a horrible family member or a horrible partner or a horrible boss, understand that person is a spirit first. We're interacting with their 3D physical body, but they're a spirit that I believe agreed in the astral, in the nether world, because they loved me so much that they would come down here and be a complete asshole to me in order to spark my divinity, in order to provide the contrast that I was going to need to hate so much. I'd have to bounce off that negativity and go in search of my divinity.
mm.
That's oneness. To me, that's what it means to be a yogi. I hope that made sense.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does.
Okay.
Thank you for putting it out in so simple words. I love it. I love it.
Good. Good. Yeah. I was like, are we allowed to curse on this podcast? I didn't ask.
No, we're not going to beat that.
Okay.
we're keeping it,
Okay.
like real. So
I
that's
love
what
it.
we
I
do.
love it. But
Yeah.
that really has allowed me to navigate life with
Mm,
so much more love, just love in general. There's nobody, I don't care how poorly they might treat me here, there's nobody who does not love me.
mm,
Nobody.
yeah. I love that. I love the way you need to see things really. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that perspective. And I think that's going to be, it's going to get a lot of people thinking out there as well, looking at
I
things
hope so.
differently. So thank you very much for
I hope
sharing.
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah. And you said, you emphasized also on reconnecting with the body as a sacred vessel. And so, how do you view the relationship between physical wellness and spiritual well-being? And
Mhm.
how can women kind of cultivate the connection in their everyday lives? And I know we've kind of touched upon a lot of things, but it's like more specific because I'm kind of also kind of dwelling into the spiritual aspect of it,
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say it starts, I think, though, with a belief or an understanding, even if you don't believe it quite yet, just understanding that we are souls
Yeah.
first who chose to have a body. We're souls, we're spirits who chose to have a human experience. We're not bodies that just so happen to have a soul. And if you first come into the awareness that we are souls that chose to have these bodies, I think the next thing that happens is that we get curious about why,
Mm,
right? Like if
mm,
we're souls, we're eternal. Like we could have anything. Like there's so much available to us. Why do
yeah.
we have these bodies in particular? Why don't we have like unicorn horns or why don't we have whatever, right? So I think once you appreciate that we're souls first, you get curious about the fact that we have a body. And I think that curiosity, at least for me, sent
Mm,
me down this deep dive. It sent me on the journey. That's actually what got me into becoming a certified personal trainer. That's what got me curious about supplements and nutrition and yoga. Just because I was like, well, what do we eat? Why do we eat food? Like, what does food mean? Tell me, like, I wanted to understand more. Like, we have a
mm,
body. How should I move it? How was it made to move? And so it's developed, letting that curiosity take you to wherever it takes you. It might take you to hula hooping, and that could end up being a huge thing for you. I don't know. But I think for women, it's just first getting curious as to why we have a body and allowing yourself, allowing that desire to grow in your heart. I think we all have it. It's just we're not used to being told to pay attention to it. So let that
mm,
desire, that curiosity grow and follow it. Follow that curiosity. And everything that you are led to is because there's a version of you on the other side of whatever that thing is that's telling you how much they love it. When I started bodybuilding, women weren't really like, there were women obviously bodybuilders because I saw them, but it wasn't mainstream. This was 12
yeah.
years ago. It was not mainstream. And I had people telling me, oh, don't do that. You're going to look like a man. And all of these things, people literally telling me, don't do it, don't do it. But something inside of me was like, I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. And it was me today, as happy as I am, looking back on that, though, it's me giving myself, the earlier version of me, those
Mm,
pulling on my own heartstrings, saying, we're going to love this. Come over here, do the thing, get started, because I promise you on the other side, you're going to love it. And I think that's what happens for every person. It's just we don't often listen to that silent pull and that call
mm,
on our.
yeah.
But to circle back around and answer your question, I think get curious about why you have a body and what can it do? Like, what can it lead you to? What's on the other side of whatever is you're afraid of, or what's on the other side of whatever that thing is that's pulling at you? There's something magical there.
Mm, yeah.
Everything's on the other side, but we have to get curious about it.
Yeah. Explore your
So
potential. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly, explore. Yeah, have
Yeah.
fun, play, like we take, and I'm guilty of this too, but we take ourselves way too seriously. Like none of us are getting out of this alive, right? Like we're all, that's what's going to happen. So we might as well have fun. And I think that's one of those things that's easy to lose sight of, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cannot agree more. And there are some misconceptions around bodybuilding as well, especially for women. And as you said, it's never been like mainstream, especially when you got started. So I have seen in my experience that when I have come across bodybuilding as a subject, it's about, oh, you need to inject yourself with steroids. You need to have
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you need to, have so much of protein, and it's just gonna put you off your, mentally, it's just gonna put you off, because I've seen a few people kind of going in a weird way where they've
Mhm.
been put off, totally off their track mentally and emotionally, and injecting themselves with steroids. So I want to know from your experience. I mean, of course, I'm sure there's a lot of, you can get into bodybuilding, embrace all the natural stuff you can get, and get to where you need to be with your goal. So just want to understand from your perspective, because this is a
Yeah.
misconception I want to kind of clear up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a misconception. I mean, you're absolutely right. There is a dark
Mm,
side to this business. I have seen that absolutely. I think so you can go one of two ways. When you start to get more in touch with your body, you can become obsessed with it in a good way, and you can become obsessed with it in a bad way, right?
mm,
I went the good direction. I became obsessed with my body and wanted to treat it better and more kindly and have a relationship with it.
yeah.
Some people in bodybuilding get obsessed and use it to manipulate and to control and want to overly discipline it, which is why they do things like steroids, which is why they do lose their mind to a certain degree, trying to pursue
Mm,
mastering and contorting their body into something that's supposed to give them a sense of self, right? Like they want to get the titles, they want to win the shows, they want to
mm,
get on magazine covers, they want to get the supplement endorsements. There's a business, right? There's a whole business that a lot of people get into bodybuilding hoping to do. And when you get there and you realize everyone's on steroids, and the people who've made it really big, they're doing things that are unhealthy, unethical. They are. It's there's no I hope there's no misconception about that. There is a dark side about it,
mm,
but some people are willing to give into that side. I really fell more in love with my body, and I think it's just a choice. It's
yeah.
just a choice because mind you, I started just trying to lose the baby weight. I was just trying to I was just trying to discipline my body. I just wanted
Mm,
to make it do what I needed it to do. Like I didn't have
yeah.
a good relationship with my body at first, but once I began to enter into relationship with it, I was like, wow, something special is here. And I think that we all get to those crossroads because there comes a point where you're offered. I was offered the steroids, I was offered the hormones, and I said no. And every bodybuilder comes to that crossroads depending on where you want to take your career.
Mm,
And so the people who go crazy with it, they make that decision to do that. It
right.
didn't sneak up on them. It's not, like catching them off guard. You are making a very intentional
Mm,
decision about it. And so yeah, it's a choice, but and it does exist. And so anyone who's thinking about getting into that industry, just be aware that will be a question that you'll have to give some thought to at some point.
mm,
I just want any woman who decides to go down that path to understand that there is a beautiful relationship that you are being invited to enter into. Um, don't turn it into an abusive one.
mm,
Don't turn that relationship with your body into a toxic, abusive one. It could
yeah.
be the most heartfelt, like love of your life if you allow it to be.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's a very good message, and thank you for giving it out and sharing it.
Yeah.
I hope, people who deciding, or women deciding to go on that path, they embrace that message because it's coming from a good place. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I
no,
guess,
thank you.
yeah, I guess with that, I have one more question, Cassandra. I know you've
Okay.
you've been amazing. Thank you so much for kind of
Yeah.
just being so genuine and open. So, a little more about just Ori Ara, was born from your side hustle you mentioned in the wellness
Yeah.
industry. So, what challenges did you face kind of transitioning from a corporate mindset to creating a
Oh,
business, that was
all
rooted
of
in
them.
holistic health? What lessons did you kind of learn? And
Oh
yeah.
gosh. That's a good question. That's a fabulous question. There's so many lessons. Um, I think the first one is that it's not about you.
Mm,
Being an entrepreneur, I think, is one of the greatest acts of kindness or understanding of humanity that you can possibly undertake. And what I mean by that is that an entrepreneur has a product it can be looked at as a product or service to be put in the world, but what it really is, it's a solution. It
Mm,
is an answer to somebody's dreams. It is a problem that you're solving.
mm,
And I didn't understand that at first. When I first got into business, I was like, I don't want to go back there to corporate. And I know that I'm smart enough. I know that I'm capable enough to go out there on my own and do it. But I made it all about me. It was all
mm,
about, I know that I can do this. I know that I can do this. And you have
mm,
to have some of that. But I think for any woman starting in business, it's not about what you can do. It's about who you can serve.
mm,
It's about who you can serve. And I try to use that language really intentionally. I don't help women, I serve women. I try not, I don't support women, I serve women. I'm truly in service. And it's taken a while to switch around to that mindset because we all think I don't want to work for someone else 40 hours a week. I want to work on my own time and do my own thing. And it's just such a me focused idea that I
mm.
think a lot of us enter entrepreneurship with. Um, and so it takes some time to undo that because you might not spend 40 hours working for somebody else, but you'll spend 80 hours, instead working for yourself because of figuring all of this stuff out. So
Yeah.
I would say that's the number one lesson that I learned is that the only way I will be successful in what I do is if I am, it's a matter of serving more and more women, providing more and more solutions for them, being more and more answered prayers to women who don't know where to turn, how to find a relationship with their body, how to feel good in their skin again. The more of them that I can serve, then the better my business does. But it starts there. It's not like, let me focus on business. It's focusing on the humanity of people.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. It's so pure, so true. I love it. Thank you for
It's
sharing that.
really true. Thank you for asking. I don't think I've been asked that question actually.
Yeah.
And it's just such a paradigm shift because you see a lot of boss babes out there, right? Like again, go to Facebook, go to Instagram, go to Threads, go to TikTok, and all these boss babe bitches who are doing only these high boss moves, and it's very intoxicating. It's very
Yeah.
like, ooh, I want to be a boss bitch, babe. No, you don't. No, you
Mm.
don't. No, you really
Yep.
don't. No, you
Yeah.
throw that word boss out the window. Being a boss has nothing to do with being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Absolutely.
It's all about being in service mode. So forget about being a boss and, lead with your heart. Figure out how you can make somebody's dream come true.
Amazing. I love, love, love this. And I think that this is one of the amazing episodes. So inspiring, Cassandra. Thank you
Oh,
so much for
good.
sharing.
Good.
Unfortunately, this is all the time we have today, but I think with every question, you have kind of had a message out there for people. So my only hope is that they kind of truly embrace it and apply it in their own lives. And I feel like this is just not in a relationship with your body, but in everything is becoming better with your body is going to reflect on everything that you do, so with your work,
Mm.
with your relationship, with everything. So I think this is the key, and we have just kind of shown us the key to the door, and that you have got the key and this door, just go unlock it and I guess and just get started. So thank you so much for that,
Yeah.
and if you
Yeah.
have any last words, and with that we'll end the episode.
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me on. I find you so lovely and so easy to talk to. One of the best hosts that I've come in contact with. And my parting words to any woman listening to this is, I believe really strongly that when you have a calling on your life, you must protect it with your health. And we all have a calling, whether that is as a mother, a wife, a best friend, a boss, a whatever, but you have a calling and nobody's asking you to be a martyr for that
Mm,
calling. We talk a lot about how I'll die for my kids, I'll die for my job, but are you willing to live healthy for them? Because
mm,
that's all anyone's asking of you. So,
yeah.
yeah, when you have a calling on your life, you must protect it with your health.
Amazing, amazing. So precious, very precious words. Thank you again. And I really encourage our listeners and viewers to go and kind of, think about this. And if you have connected and resonated with Cassandra, I will leave her information in the description so you can go and check it out. With that, Cassandra, thank you so much for coming on Sipping on Stories podcast. I wish you all the best. and have a lovely day, evening.
I will. Yeah, evening over here. You have a beautiful day.